Hi, I'm Doug, and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage, where today we are checking out the brand new Mesa Boogie Cab Clone IR, and this thing is awesome. All right, it's a combination of a reactive load box with 16 different slots, either for Mesa Boogie's quote-unquote stock IRs that are anything but stock, or you can load your own IRs on there via the USB jack that's on the back. If you're new to this whole reactive load IR thing, basically it does a couple of really important things. Makes it so you can get the classic tone of your favorite tube amplifier without having to be at some ridiculous volume or use a cabinet at all if you don't want to. It's great for a live setting, it's great in the studio. All right, there are a ton of great features on this box, and we're going to kind of unpack them as we unpack the demos. At the top there, you heard me using my JP16 into the front end of my JP2C. I came out of the speaker output there into the speaker input on the back of the Cab Clone IR. In turn, the processed signal, that is to say the sound of this amplifier and the speaker output, in turn gets the addition of the IR processing. That gets output via this XLR mic cable that's in this case running to Pro Tools. All right, on the face of the unit here, you have the input, presence, and output level controls. And then this rotary switch allows you to choose between 8 different IR slots that are separated into 2 banks. And per that first demo, the way they've done this out of the box is really smart. So at the top, you heard one guitar panned dead center, and then it went to the left when you heard the other guitar join it. I was using the 4th slot, using these 2 different sets of mics to create this beautiful stereo separation. All right, these 8 different slots here, stock, out of the box, feature 4 different rectifier cabinets, a Theo cabinet, a 112 and a 212 Lone Star cabinet, as well as a 112 Tweed cabinet. And they're basically set up one for one across these slots. And as you toggle back and forth with the switches here, you're toggling between 2 different mic sets through which those cabinets were shot. The upper set is what they refer to as the live set, which is a combination of a Shure SM57 and a Beyer 160. The lower set, which they refer to as the studio set, is a combination of a Neumann U67 and a Royer 122. So the right guitar was utilizing the live set of mics, that guy that you heard come in when the guitar is separated out. The left guitar that originally started out dead center was using the studio mics. Made it super easy to put that together. And by the way, when I got this whole little rig wired, it took me 5 minutes to go from setting things up to actually having tone, which if you've spent time miking up cabinets and or tube amps, you know that's record time. Super cool. All right, the next demo is going to utilize this lovely Mark II-B. So for that one, I was using the slave output on the Mark II-B into the line in input on the Cab Clone IR. And that is different than the speaker input. For one, it obviously doesn't have a reactive load because it's not a speaker output coming out of the Boogie. That just captures the sound literally from the input all the way to the output section of the amplifier, but with obviously out using the speaker output. Now what's neat about that is a couple of things as it relates to this box. One is I'm using the Theo cabinet, which sounds amazing. 2, I was able to come in here, and obviously, as you might have guessed, that was the cabinet that I dialed up. And I was using the studio mics for that one. Now, although I didn't do that for this demo, one of the options would be to take the line output, which is separate from the main DI output, which always has the IR, quote unquote, burned in. The line output is kind of what they call a dry output. So I could run that into Pro Tools and basically have that sound captured and reamp out through this, recab out to this, go back into the line input, and then be able to add the IR after the fact. So say I didn't necessarily think that the IR I chose coming out of the DI output best fit the track, gave me the opportunity to change it after the fact. And what it means is there's an amazing workflow going on. Now, for some of you, that might be gibberish. So let me get to the other part of the equation here that's so cool. The sound coming out of the amplifier into this cabinet and the sound coming out of this box into my studio monitors was nearly indistinguishable. And in this type of a situation, that is amazing when that happens. Now, I will point out one little thing. To my ear, I actually preferred for all the demos as I was crafting the tones to turn the presence knob all the way back. Generally at high noon is kind of, if you will, at 0. So I was pulling the presence back. But the sounds that I was able to get, and again, being able to recreate the sound of the way the speaker and the cabinet and the amp interacted in the room, that's priceless. All right, for this next demo, we're going to move over to the Lone Star there in tweed mode. Let's check it out. So for that one, I was running into the first channel on the Lone Star set to tweed mode. In turn, I was coming out of the slave output into the line in on the cab clone IR. And as you might have guessed, I was using the tweed IR, and I chose the studio mics to mic that up with, quote unquote, virtually. In turn, that was going out into Pro Tools. And again, what I loved about that, the sound that was in the room as I was kind of practicing that was the same vibe that I was getting as I was sitting in front of my studio monitors. That's awesome. All right, next up, we're going to move over to channel 2 on the Lone Star for something a little twangier. So for that one, I moved over to channel 2 on the Lone Star. I put it in Class A/B mode, and I dialed up a little bit of gain so I could get some snarl when I dug in on that kind of countrified blues. As you might have imagined, I at that time was using the Lone Star IR, actually the 212 Lone Star IR over there. And then in Pro Tools, I dialed up one of my favorite plugins, the Cooper Time Cube, which was on the left-hand side, a dotted eighth delay, and on the right-hand side, a quarter note delay. All right, for this last demo, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're just going to be using the Origin Effects Revival Drive into the Cab Clone IR. Let's take a listen. The ability to get that kind of tone using one stomp straight out in the Cab Clone IR, for me, is absolutely nothing short of amazing. Yes, I did add a little bit of the Cooper Time Cube and the EMT 140 plugins from Universal Audio in post, but the sound was right there. And speaking of the sound, the ability to capture all these amps and use that one box to get all of that into Pro Tools is nothing short of amazing. All right, last but not least, there are two other features I want to mention. That is a ground lift switch that enables you to lift the ground, and that right there is the phase inversion switch. Both of those are really key functions to making this thing work properly in your recording and live setup. Speaking of your setup, down below is a link where you can potentially pick one of these guys up. I make a little something on the back end, so if looking turns into buying, thank you very much. Also, in case you have not already subscribed to the channel, I invite you to do so, and please ring the bell so I can let you know when more videos go online. And until then, thanks so much for watching. Cheers.